The information presented in this video is based on current historical research and scholarly sources. Interpretations may vary among historians, and our understanding of the past continues to evolve. Think for a moment about the paper in your wallet or the digital balance flickering on your phone screen. We treat these abstractions as the lifeblood of civilization, yet they are merely the latest iteration of a concept that fundamentally rewired human interaction. Before this, the world operated on the cumbersome friction of barter, a system where the value of a goat had to be negotiated against a sack of grain in every single transaction. But then, in the mist-shrouded foothills of western Anatolia, something shifted. A revolutionary tool emerged that transformed the chaotic nature of exchange into a standardized language of wealth. Tracing the exact origin of money is a complex endeavor, as we must navigate the blurred lines between ancient oral traditions and the concrete reality of the archaeological record. While myths often credit legendary kings with divine inspiration, modern scrutiny focuses on the physical artifacts unearthed in the heart of the Lydian Kingdom. We are moving away from the realm of legend and into the tangible world of metallurgy and statecraft. Evidence suggests that during the 7th century BCE, the inhabitants of this region began a transition that would echo through the millennia. Historians debate the precise motivations behind the first official coinage, but one leading theory holds that it was a strategic response to the needs of an expanding mercantile empire. By stamping precious metal with an official seal, the Lydian state provided a guarantee of weight and purity that simplified trade across vast distances. This wasn't merely a change in accounting, it was a shift in power. It allowed for the accumulation of capital and the professionalization of armies, effectively creating the blueprint for the modern economy. Before we dive into the mechanics of how these first electrum pieces were minted and circulated, we must first set the stage by examining the unique geopolitical landscape of the ancient Lydian heartland. Nestled in the western reaches of modern-day Turkey, the heart of the Lydian realm was defined by a landscape of startling contrasts. Here, the geography acted as both a shield and a catalyst for prosperity. To the east, the rugged, mineral-heavy slopes of Mount Tmolus rose sharply, acting as a natural fortress that guarded the Lydian capital, Sardis. The Hermus Valley functioned as a natural nexus for the ancient world. Because of this, Lydia became the primary gateway through which the goods of the East, dyes, textiles, and precious metals, flowed toward the burgeoning Greek city-states. But there was something more tangible fueling this ascent than just trade routes. The Pactolus River, which wound its way through the shadow of the Acropolis at Sardis, was legendary for its gold-bearing sands. While we should view ancient accounts of rivers flowing with literal liquid gold with a healthy degree of skepticism, geological evidence suggests that the region was indeed rich in electrum, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver. By the time King Croesus ascended the throne in the mid-6th century BCE, the kingdom had reached the zenith of its influence. Historians debate the precise extent of his personal fortune, yet the consensus remains that he held a level of control over precious metal reserves that was unprecedented for the era. His court at Sardis became a magnet for thinkers, travelers, and emissaries from across the Mediterranean, all drawn by the gravitational pull of Lydian gold. They maintained a professional military force that could hold its own against the most formidable powers of the age, including the rising shadow of the Persian Empire. However, to maintain such a grand machine, the state required more than just raw bullion, it needed a system to standardize value. The Lydian administration faced a fundamental problem: how to translate the raw geological fortune of their mountains into a fluid, reliable, and portable medium of exchange. But as we transition from the physical geography of the valley to the inner workings of the royal mints, we must consider the human ingenuity that turned these raw materials into the world's first standardized currency. To understand how this transformation unfolded, we have to look past the glint of gold and confront the chaotic reality of the ancient marketplace. Merchants didn't just trade, they negotiated the very essence of value. If you wanted grain for your livestock, you weren't just agreeing on a price, you were verifying the purity of a silver scrap or the weight of a copper ingot. It was an environment ripe for friction and rampant fraud. The Lydian solution was not merely an aesthetic choice, it was an act of profound economic engineering. Evidence suggests that the royal administration recognized the inherent, consistent composition of this riverborne metal as a unique opportunity. Instead of requiring buyers to weigh out every exchange, the state took on the burden of authentication. This wasn't just metal anymore, it was a promise. By stamping these pieces, the palace effectively declared that the weight and quality were already verified by the sovereign. A merchant no longer needed to carry a scale into the bazaar, he only needed to recognize the mark of the Lydian lion. This transition from raw commodity to fiduciary instrument fundamentally altered the power dynamic between the state and the citizen. While it is tempting to view this as an overnight revolution, current research implies a more gradual integration, where stamped coins circulated alongside traditional weighed bullion for decades. The transition was likely driven by the need to pay mercenary armies and satisfy tax obligations, creating a top-down mandate that eventually forced the marketplace to modernize. Because electrum occurs in varying ratios of gold to silver, the value of these early coins was notoriously difficult to pin down with absolute precision. The very invention that promised to stabilize the economy would soon force the Lydian kings into a dangerous game of debasement, setting the stage for a fiscal collapse that would challenge the very survival of their empire. Yet, despite these inherent flaws, the Lydian innovation acted as a catalyst for a seismic shift in human interaction. By standardizing the medium of exchange, the kings of Sardis effectively dismantled the cumbersome barriers of the barter system. This efficiency transformed the marketplace from a sluggish exchange of goods into a fluid, high-velocity engine of commerce. As transaction costs plummeted, a new social stratum began to emerge, the merchant class. This burgeoning middle class fundamentally altered the structure of Lydian society, creating a dynamic environment where economic mobility became possible for the first time in the ancient world. The merchant was no longer a peripheral figure, but a central architect of the state's prosperity. Simultaneously, the monarchy recognized that the power to mint was the power to govern. The coin became a physical manifestation of the king's reach, a stamp of legitimacy that traveled further than any soldier or royal decree. This control allowed the state to fund standing armies, commission monumental architecture, and project influence far beyond the fertile valleys of Anatolia. In summary, we have traced the arc of a kingdom that moved from the limitations of barter to the sophistication of a market economy. We've seen how the Lydians bridged the gap between raw metal and modern finance, fostering a merchant class that reshaped social hierarchies and granting the state an unprecedented degree of fiscal control. It was a period defined by rapid expansion and the birth of a new, complex relationship between the citizen, the coin, and the crown. Their experiment with electrum was the first step toward the global financial infrastructure that underpins our modern existence. It is a quiet reminder that the most durable empires are often built not just by the sword, but by the revolutionary ideas that simplify how we value our lives and our labor. Thank you for watching.